two drunk assholes talking about whatever comes to mind. We present Filler with Jack Fike and Rob Harper. Filler is Jack and my insane rambling. In this episode of Filler, we discuss the Netflix series Daredevil. Please do note that we are extremely drunk during these recordings, so if we do sound like unintelligent fools, just forgive us. So this filler we're going to do right now is about Daredevil, and it's going to be full of spoilers.
It is. It's going to be spoilerific. It's the Daredevil, the Netflix, the new rolled out Daredevil from Netflix, the first of many that will end up being The Outsiders. And if you haven't seen it,
Not The Outsiders. The Defenders. You're the like Defenders. DC guy. The Outsiders are like, isn't that Batman's group?
Yes, it is.
Oh, your childhood. You've ruined it by having DC in your childhood.
And what can I tell you? I'm not partial to one or the other, DC or Marvel. I'm not a fanboy of each or either.
Well, except for now, because DC is terrible. Although non-Marvel movies are terrible too. Look at Fantastic Four. So
we can't go down that road. We have to stick.
Oh, we're one-trick ponies. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I didn't say that. But anyways, it has been said. So, Daredevil. Yep. Daredevil, if you haven't seen it, just stop listening right now.
First of all, why not? Well,
we are not that important. Stop listening right now.
And never come back. Oh, wait, come back?
Come back! Come back!
Yes, watch the show. And a lot of people at the beginning, it was funny because I think all of us on the planet who watched Daredevil watched it that first weekend, pretty much. And looking through the tweets, it was hilarious to see people complaining about the acting at the very beginning and all this stuff. And by the end, everybody was just raving at how good it was. Like, there was no naysayers anymore. And I think that was hilarious to watch. Because people are bitches. I don't know if you knew this.
All the people from all four corners were bitches?
Yes, I really hate the internet. And, but...
being on Twitter, I didn't know that there was a metamorphosis, a coming from a chrysalis into a beautiful butterfly for this series in the eyes of some of the viewers, because I didn't have any problems with full acting. I didn't have any problems with anything from the beginning. Like, there was nothing jarring. When we get into it, there's a couple things that did, but from the beginning, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, some people complain about Foggy's acting, and I never even noticed it. And the girl I was used to, because she was on True Blood, so
Deborah Wall,
who's super hot, and she was on True Blood. And I always thought on True Blood that when vampires cry on True Blood, their eyes, they cry blood. And every time I thought that they put makeup on her, because when she would cry in that show, she would have this like blood around her eyes, almost really red around her eyes. And I thought it was a special effect. And in this show, she was crying, and she has that. This is a natural thing she has. I think she's a vampire, is what I'm trying to say.
Looks better as a redhead if we wanted to break it down. If we wanted to really like just debase the show itself and
yeah, she's blonde in this show, right?
Making comments about like that kind of thing. But as a redhead, she was.
But she's almost like a strawberry blonde in this. She's almost redhead in this anyway.
Yes.
But, yeah, I liked her a lot. And another thing people complained, their very first case, all of a sudden they hire her. But that's the whole conceit of the show. Like, anyways. People annoy me. That's what I'm just trying to get to. So let's, the first episode, they was more of like a crime drama. And then by the end, it was a full-on superhero show.
You mean by the end of the first episode, or by the end of the
series, like
series? Yeah, okay, yeah. So as I say, no, it was a slow burn. There was the first episode. You know what it was? Just thinking about it, it was like a Law and Order type procedural.
Yeah.
Okay, I flubbed the word procedural. That's all laugh at Jack. He can't say procedural off the top of his head.
Have you been drinking?
Have you been? Well, have I not been drinking? That's the question. And
But
the
yeah.
answer to that is no, I have not.
And it was almost serious at the beginning, and then the middle had a lot more humor in it, which I thought was nice. It brought some life to it. It was almost like real, because not everything's super serious and not everything's super funny. There's always a middle ground, right?
There's always different aspects, and I liked how it was accessible to people who liked crime dramas on television, and it wasn't a superhero movie type. Like, it wasn't a cape and tights.
Well, he did kind of had tights. I like when Foggy found out. He's like, "Where do you get this stuff?" Internet.
Yeah. Don't you make those? No, but I'm talking about the first episode, and at the beginning. Yeah. So anyone just like, what's Daredevil? And you weren't into the capes.
Oh yeah, it's definitely much more grounded. There was no superpowers. Well, I guess technically his thing is a superpower, but
yes,
the way they portrayed it is more like he just had heightened senses, and it is a superpower, but it wasn't, even in the beginning, you didn't even know how it really worked. He didn't explain that until a few episodes in.
So what I'm saying is it got you in ground floor, accessible to a lot of people, and even people who would have been against watching a superhero, in air quotes, show. But yeah. You're hooked already. Like, they set the hook now. Oh, it's a superhero show because he's got these powers, and now it's too late. You're already edge of your seat.
Yep, that first episode especially. But then I think it might have been the second episode. All of a sudden I was like, this is like Arrow if Arrow wasn't on CW.
They out-arrowed Arrow. I was, just the way they did it, they took the Arrow textbook and they learned and they stuck to the same beats, the same, plot points, the same, it was like they went to Arrow school and they got an A.
And it was also a thing I noticed, it was ultra violent. Like, I don't know how soon that started happening, but it was just like, holy crap. There was some things that they would show, and I was just like, wow, that's violent.
The fight scenes were choreographed excellently. The special effects were not only was the fighting special effects competent, but just the way it was executed had a flavor that was uniform throughout the show. It had it was stylized in a way that I really liked. Now, people have said, like my girlfriend, I recommended to her, and people had also recommended to her to see it, and everyone's basically said the same thing. She doesn't really like the blood and the violent, and everyone said, you're gonna be spending a lot of time, like, looking into your hands and...
Yeah, there's some excessive violence, that's for sure.
But it works. It works. You're in a dark and gritty, you've set they don't bring it out of nowhere.
That's for sure.
They build the world, and then it's what you're getting into, and at no point, it's not like it's out of nowhere you run up and you turn the girl over, your sidekick over, and half her head's blown off. Like, oh, what the hell, this was a comedy.
Yeah, that was super.
That was super, and it was super.
That was, the movie Super, and it was, shocking.
It was shocking, and
which worked for that movie, because that was the whole point, but...
Right. But in this, you know what you're getting, and it fit. It fit. Like you said, they even removed a lot of the CW-ness that is in Arrow because it is on CW. Like, they distilled away some of the, it works on Arrow. I'm not going to bash Arrow. I enjoy the show, but there's some stuff on there that is because it is on the network, and it is
like gratuitous,
it is what it is.
Gratuitous shirtless shots, or
And, the dramatic interpersonal male-female, love triangle type things.
Although they kind of,
melodrama.
actually they started to do that in this, and I thought that would be a problem between Foggy and Karen and Matt. But then by the end, Foggy has a different girl, and I think they cleared it up so that they could just be Karen and Matt, which is interesting that they did that. It was like they were like, oh, this is going to happen, and that's going to be a love triangle. No, it's not. They're just, Foggy kind of went with his ex-girlfriend, and it worked out.
Who, the ex-girlfriend, for some reason, and again, I don't want to, be that kind of guy, but when I first saw her, I was like, she's nothing that I find attractive. The bleach blonde hair,
she was very corporate.
Not corporate,
Yeah, she looked like that's what corporate people look like nowadays, Jack.
Oh, okay. Well, she didn't look professional. Either way, but the actress somehow made it work. At first I was like, oh.
Because you're supposed to not like her very first time you meet her.
And it worked because, Foggy, he's not, that actor, he's not much to look at either.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, she's way better than him, so, there's no way she would be with someone like him, but
it makes sense because she wasn't as fake as she seemed. And
it did. It was like, I looked at her. Yeah,
you're like, why would she be with Foggy? And then why would Foggy be with her? And it just turned out, well, yeah, he said at one point, you're actually a good person. You just forgot that.
And it just kind of became something that was believable from the first.
And this is just like bit character. She's barely in the show.
But it was a facet that where because some things can just jar you out of a show.
Yeah.
And some things are meant to do that, and then that's the twist. That's the thing. Oh, yeah, I guess she is this instead of what the surface showed.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. Just what they did with that actress and the way they did it. That's my point.
Yep. And that was just one of the many side characters. Speaking of which, it's first of all, they have a huge actress in Rosario Dawson. She's barely in the show, which I find is amazing. They didn't just have her in every single episode. They used her so sparingly. It was well, that's pretty amazing to have. She's the biggest actress in the show for sure. Well, maybe her and D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
Yeah, D'Onofrio obviously is the big.
But they also waited for episode 3 or something before they even showed him. It was just always just talked about, and they wouldn't even mention his name because and they never call him Kingpin until the second last episode. So it was just really interesting how they, like you say, it's a slow burn. They knew they had 13 episodes, and they knew it was all going to come out at once, and they're just going to slow burn it right through it because they knew that they could afford that because people would just keep watching it. It's not like you have to wait a week and you'd be like, oh, I don't really care if I watch the next one. Some of them ended on cliffhangers, some didn't. It didn't have to care about that. Unlike regular shows, which have to bring you back every week, That's
the advantage there. It can do pacing, knowing that you can press play instantly after you've finished. The credits are rolling, and Netflix is like, you want to watch the next one? And you're like, yeah, I do. It's not like, oh God, we got to do something that keeps people thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that next Tuesday, people all week will be remembering, oh yeah, I want to watch that show.
Yeah. It just kept you going, and I don't know, I watched, I think, 3 or 4 episodes in a row right off the bat, so.
Yeah, as for Rosario Dawson, I think she was, there was an opportunity missed. I would have liked to have seen her on the rooftop of, say, a convenience store, dancing to a Michael Jackson song. I don't know which one, but I think that would have been something I would have wanted to see.
And, yeah. And isn't there a nurse in Doctor Strange? The night nurse? Is that her?
The night nurse. I don't know enough to even form a guess. He was a former doctor.
And there is a character called Night Nurse, but I just don't know if that's her.
So
maybe they're just setting her up to be in Doctor Strange.
Again, I don't have any frame of reference.
I do hope that's true, because that would be pretty cool that they just were like, yeah, we'll just have her in here as this character. Oh, by the way, she's like a main character in Doctor Strange. It's going to be the same world.
Well, yes, it is.
And they mention the events of the Avengers destroying the city and makes way for this whole storyline to happen. And they tie it to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. One of the characters in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. goes to the same orphanage as Murdoch.
What was it?
Saint Agnes.
Yes.
And Crusher Creel, who was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., fought Daredevil's father back in the day.
Apparently, you can see a picture of Spider-Man on the board in the background in one shot.
Oh, yeah? I didn't know that.
Apparently, I've seen the stills, and I'm not convinced, but you can see a Punisher symbol.
Oh, yeah?
Spray painted on the inside of the sewer when he was trying to get the Russian bad guy to safety.
Oh, yeah?
And there was something else.
Like, they're either laying seeds or connecting it to the other shows, which is great. And that's why Marvel's good. They know what they're doing. Let's talk about one thing that I know you don't like was Ben Urich's untimely demise.
It was the one thing that the Kingpin didn't. How can I say it? I didn't think it fit the story. I didn't think it fit the character of Kingpin for it to play out the way it did, and I didn't think that it was. I didn't. Eventually, I was like, I got over it. I wasn't on any forums typing vigorously. I wasn't on any of the four corners bitching.
But you did bring up a good point also, though. He did it because he did the one no-no for the Kingpin. Don't mess with the women in his life.
And that's the thing. When it first was happening, Kingpin was there. I said, well, Kingpin is going to ask him if he killed Wesley.
Yeah.
Because that's what he was on the Kingpin's assistant was murdered, and Kingpin was following the leads to find out who did it, and it led to this reporter Urich. And the Kingpin's smart. The Kingpin knows people, and within a few seconds of talking to Ben Urich,
yeah, he's like, I know you didn't do it.
And I was like, okay, well, so what the Kingpin could have done is say, okay, well, you're not going to get a story out of me, but I can give you stories. You want some stories? I can give you a story. Hey, just don't. There's nothing to see here, and count yourself lucky, whatever. But then Kingpin eventually killed the reporter.
Well, I love the point. Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to stop doing this. He's like, yeah, I know you won't. And then he just like strangles him.
Yeah. And really, there was, if they had given the reporter something a little juicier, a little more factual, something bigger to work with story-wise, that would have really been damaging to Kingpin. I could see why Kingpin would have killed him, but it was something that was so...
But he messed with his mom.
And that's the thing. What I had to afterwards, and it was much later when I was thinking about it, and Kingpin was saying, "You went after my mother," and I was like, "Well, he didn't actually. He went and visited her in the old folks' home. Like he didn't go after her, but."
He's overly protective of his women life, and look at it, he killed his own father because of that.
And that's the thing. Vincent D'Onofrio's acting throughout the whole thing was so superb.
Yeah.
His range went from, in one scene, would go from, like...
feeling sorry for him, or...
Yeah, he would seem timid or scared, and then be violently, would be hardened, and then would go into rage, and and subtle changes. And it was the one thing, you had to know the background and say, okay, he's psychologically damaged. His mother was abused. He was abused by an abusive father who treated them both very poorly, and apparently domestic violence was running rampant in the household when he was probably the age of, 12, 13.
Yeah, at least when he killed the guy. Yeah.
And eventually he had to kill his own father to save his mother by bludgeoning him with a hammer. So,
yeah.
At some point, just D'Onofrio's acting, the way he did it, I'm thinking that in his head, you went after my mother. Well, Ben Urich wasn't the guy who was sitting across from him at that point. It was his dad again, or it was because then he just obviously murdered him, strangled him, and it was out of character at first, but thinking back, I could excuse that, not excuse. I let that roll. Okay, I can.
Yeah, it's he's definitely the most multifaceted villain in Marvel Universe so far. Like, well, of course, he's also the person you've had the most time with too. Same with Daredevil. Like, no other hero in the Marvel Universe we've had as much time with as Daredevil now. Just even with all the movies, just time-wise, we've had 13 hours with Daredevil. Like nobody else. What, Iron Man, you've had 3 hours or 6 hours maybe, you know, or even 8 if you count Avengers too. So they fleshed out this villain and this hero more than anybody else, and I can't wait for the further ones.
The guy who played Daredevil, fantastic.
Another British guy. Those British, they're very good at playing Americans.
And I liked they seeded some stuff with the senator that got disgraced. He becomes a villain. The guy who was building Daredevil's armor, he becomes a villain. Just seeding with stuff that it didn't seem like it was world building without beating you over the head with a hammer to do it.
Yeah.
I really, if the other 4 or 3 Netflix shows are of the same quality, then I don't know. Marvel is unstoppable. They will own.
Yeah, for the video at least.
All facets of television they will have. Okay, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I stopped watching for a while, even this season. It's not doing it for me, but
it had a little bit of a lull, but it's coming back around now for sure. And it's going to lead up to Avengers 2, which is interesting.
Network television, Netflix, movies. Marvel's really just a juggernaut of entertainment, and hopefully the other ones do live up to Daredevil's quality, because it was very good.
And hopefully Fantastic Four tanks, so that they'll have to pull a Sony and give the license to Marvel to make a good Fantastic Four movie. With Doom actually Doom, who runs Latveria instead of being from another dimension.
Have you seen the second trailer yet?
Yes, I have. No, have I? Yeah, I think I did watch it. Yeah.
Well, when Reed Richards is what looks like a 18-year-old.
Yeah. For some reason, these are the people traveling through another dimension.
And it's just. Here, in a nutshell, Spider-Man, the latest edition of Spider-Man was a angsty teen superhero, fish out of water origin story. And it was a terrible movie, and it tanked, and the populace hissed and threw rotten vegetables and lashed out enough that Sony had to let Spider-Man as a IP go back to Marvel, even just temporarily.
They still own the license. They're going to get paid money to make anything, but that's fine. Marvel doesn't care.
So the producers of the Fantastic Four movie went, you know what we should do? Angsty teenager types fish out of water, an origin story with our property.
And what I've heard the director say is that it's going to be more of a horror movie than anything else. I'm like, really? Fantastic Four? Horror? Fantastic Four is supposed to be the lightest, funnest group, and they've turned it into Batman Begins. What are these people?
As far as I can tell, they're just throwing good money after bad, following in behind the floundering foolishness that was the last two Spider-Man movies by following that lead, and I think it's just...
I think they're still following the, hey, Batman was successful making it dark and broody, let's make everything dark and broody. Where Marvel's like, hello, haven't you seen our movies?
But it looks like a sci-fi take. For the Fantastic Four, it looks like a science fiction movie, which I can see. Yeah, let's do that. But then not every Fantastic Four movie has to be, oh, Doctor Doom is Reed's best friend and he gets created and now he's the enemy and here's them getting their powers and here's making it a science fiction take on the same movie that's been made 4 or 5 times already is not bear with me. People are sick of origin stories.
Yeah.
Sick to death. And it's not because, it's fashionable to be against origin stories now. That's just what people on the internet do. No. We've watched Batman's mother's pearls hit the paper so many times.
Or Uncle Ben being murdered.
Uncle Ben being murdered. Superman in his space bassinet smashing into the Kansas countryside. Like
Baby Superman.
We've seen it.
Yeah.
God damn it, we've seen it.
And we know it. Like, I can understand an origin story for Daredevil, say.
That was my point.
Because you don't know the character.
Daredevil worked with an origin story because it was an origin story that is not ingrained in the psyche of the global populace.
And it was done well, because it was done all in flashback, not all at once. So you don't just get okay, fine, it's all at once. It was one episode would just show one little part of it. Another one would show another little part of it. It wasn't, you weren't beat over the head with it.
Now, had Daredevil been done 4 or 5 times, starting with Roger Corman's Daredevil.
Well, it had been done once before, but...
And moving forward with all these other Daredevils, we would have been, okay, enough. We know Matt Murdock's dad, stop it. And people would have been sick of it.
Yeah.
Fantastic Four is at the point where, okay, enough. We're sick of it.
Yeah. We understand they got superpowers.
It's just a juxtaposition between the two.
Or just don't make the whole movie the origin story. Just gloss over it at the very beginning, and just be that's it. Don't make the whole movie is the origin story again.
Yeah, but we digress. Yes, the Fantastic Four looks.
Well, to end on a high note, to talking about Daredevil, let's just say that it's just been announced that it's been renewed for season 2. So at least we're getting more of that. That's
obvious. I could have set my watch to that. That it's been critically acclaimed. It's been the fans have been falling all over themselves to praise it. So that's not a surprise.
Yeah. So, I'm sure it'll stay good. We'll just have to watch. Well, there you go. We love Daredevil. Who would have guessed? Until next time, this has been Filler. Thank you. And we're sorry. Thank you for listening to this ad. Here's Captain Courage with a very special guest.
And I'm here with Lobster Lass. What was that, Lobster Lass? Give us that email address one more time, Lobster Lass.
Once again, that's VinlandOldTimeRadio@gmail.com.